Hello, okay, for those of you returning to the channel, welcome back, and for those of you that are new here, that have just stumbled upon this video, then thank you for joining me, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of The Long Walk, a survival dystopian thriller directed by Francis Lawrence from a screenplay by JT Mollner, who also did the very good, he also wrote and directed Strange Darling, which I highly recommend. But you got Francis Lawrence here directing. You might know him from directing The Hunger Games. He also did I Am Legend, as well as Constantine, which I actually quite like. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Constantine. And so here we've got The Long Walk, and it's based on a 1979 Stephen King novel of the same name. It's a novel that I've never read, so I'm not going to be able to compare this story, this experience to the book, to the novel. So the story of The Long Walk takes place in a dystopian future under authoritarian rule. 50 teenage boys are selected to participate in a brutal endurance contest known as The Long Walk. The rules are simple. Keep walking without slowing down or face deadly consequences. As the miles stretch on, physical exhaustion and psychological pressure begin to take their toll, revealing the deep motivations and personal struggles each walker carries. The Long Walk, it's a very tight, streamlined, focused and contained experience, and as a result it immerses you right into the heart, right into the core of this story with these characters. Like, they do a wonderful job through how this narrative is constructed, through how the film is shot, through the very tight script. They just do, with all those different elements, they do a wonderful job at making me feel like I am part of this group of characters that have to go on this walk, this test to sort of win a prize and sort of, you know, to be financially better off, to endure the kind of the torment and the horror of what The Long Walk is. And I just feel like through all those different elements, through the writing, through how this narrative is constructed, through the kind of that kind of very contained, focused approach to telling this story, they just do a wonderful job at kind of really pitting me, really kind of immersing me right into the core of these characters' journeys, and I felt like I was there with them. And as a result, I found this to be an incredibly intense and effective experience. It's a very bleak experience. It's not a pleasant experience, but in a good way, because the movie, through how it's constructed, this experience, through how it's constructed, evokes all the right emotions from me as someone who is experiencing this story unfold. Like I said, I've never read the novel, but I definitely will after watching this, because this was an incredibly immersive, intense, and emotional experience. It's a result of that kind of that focus, you know, on sort of, you know, making sure that this story is contained, that we are sort of following these characters solely, right, sort of on this walk. Like, we do start in the car, or we do start in a car with Cooper Hoffman's character Raymond, and he's with his mother, and his mother is dropping him off at the walk. But once he's dropped off, you know, that is it. We are on this walk with these characters, and I just feel like it's as a result of that approach in telling this story is where I could anyway kind of really feel the desperation within these characters, and that kind of the psychological torment, the anger and the frustration, and just that turmoil that's going on within these characters. You can feel that, and I just feel like it's aided beautifully by all of the performances from all of the cast. Everyone gives a great performance here that allows you to buy in to what these characters are going through. They are performances that I felt were quite natural, they were quite organic. Like, even though I did have kind of minor niggles with the writing in places, which I'll touch on later in the review, it's as a result of these kind of very authentic performances that have really allowed me to get emotionally wrapped up within these characters' journeys and believe in sort of what these characters are feeling through this experience. One of the standout performances for me was from a David Jonsson, who you might remember from Alien Romulus. He plays Andy in Alien Romulus, Romulus, and I absolutely loved him in that. And here he is also superb. He plays the character Peter, a character who befriends Raymond, and he is just simply superb. David Jonsson is one of my favourite new rising upcoming actors at the moment. It's a performance that feels natural, it feels organic. He is the beating heart of this story, and it's his performance that is one of the major elements within this experience that kind of really aids in elevating the experience, that allows the themes and emotions within the story to really come alive and pack an emotional punch. And I've only ever seen this actor, I've only ever seen David Jonsson in Alien Romulus, and after watching him here in The Long Walk, this actor, this man has range. Like, he is incredible, and I am looking forward to seeing more from David Jonsson, because I just love how he's bringing these characters to life. It just feels authentic, it feels organic, and he says so much through how he brings his characters to life, especially here with Peter. And it's as a result of his performance that brings the big beating heart of this story to life in a way that is incredibly powerful. Cooper Hoffman, who plays Raymond, is also great. Yeah, he does a good job at conveying the rage and the torment that's hidden within him. And there's a moment within the last 20 minutes that really hits hard emotionally, and it works, it's effective because of how this experience is constructed right up until that point within the story, and by how much I believe in this character due to how he's bringing this character to life. In many ways, it's quite a subdued performance, but once sort of those layers are sort of peeled back and you sort of get an understanding of what's driving this character, it also makes sense. And then along with all those elements that I've mentioned, from the performances to the writing to how this narrative is constructed to the focus on these characters' journeys, the cherry on the top then, you could say, you know, what really sort of aids in kind of really bringing sort of this emotionally charged and dread-inducing and bleak story to life is the beautiful, haunting and emotionally charged score by Jeremiah Freites. Now, I'd never heard of a Jeremiah Freites, but I found out he is the co-founder and writer within the band The Lumineers, which I have actually listened to. I listened to their debut a few years ago, and I do remember liking it. But his score here is just simply beautiful. It's music that elevates every moment. It tells a story, and it just beautifully conveys what our characters are going through mentally, the horror that is within them. It's just simply a gorgeous soundtrack, and it's just one of those scores, it's one of those soundtracks that does so much to kind of really aid, to really kind of help bring to life what they are exploring within this story, with what these characters are going through emotionally and internally. And there are some moments that work emotionally due to that beautiful score. And like I said at the beginning of the review, I haven't actually read the novel, but I did find this experience, you know, I found it quite striking how eerily relevant to today's world this story is. You know, even though Stephen King first wrote it in the late 1960s, I believe, this film adaptation resonates, I felt, with modern anxieties about authoritarianism and spectacle and youth under pressure. I felt like the movie depicts a regime that uses ritualized violence as entertainment to maintain control, which mirrors contemporary concerns about governments exploiting fear, distraction and spectacle to keep populations compliant. And I felt like, you know, you've got all of those themes and sort of those messages here within the story. It's the approach that they take in sort of exploring these themes in that kind of very streamlined way is what allows sort of these very kind of real human stories to really fully come to life, I felt. Another element within this movie, within this experience, that allows it to be as effective as it is, I felt, was the violence and sort of how graphic and brutal the violence was in this film. Like, I was very shocked that it's a 15 certificate over here in the UK due to how graphic the movie is at times and in moments, and I think it's absolutely necessary. I think the violence that we do get, you know, the camera lingers on it just for the right amount of time. It pulls away just at the right moment, but we see enough for it to be incredibly striking, and so for it to really kind of elevate the horror and elevate the stakes and sort of the realization of what it is that these characters are going through. I think it's very important that it was as brutal as it was, but I just wasn't expecting it to be quite as graphic as it was. I'm just a little shocked that it was a 15 certificate, but it was absolutely necessary. It really sort of aided in telling this story, or allowing this experience and this story to be as effective as it was, to allow sort of you to buy into what is happening, for those themes that they are exploring within this story to feel very real and very authentic. With all that being said, I did have a few minor gripes with the movie, with the experience. I felt like the writing in moments is maybe too expository, and I felt at times I wanted to know more from certain characters within this group, especially the more fractured, the more psychologically vulnerable. We do get hints, and I feel in some ways that worked to allow myself to be more focused and involved within the main group of characters that we are following, the Musketeers. But it also felt some moments lacked the emotional weight needed due to that lack of insight and focus on some of the psychological complexity of certain characters within this group. But at the same time, with all that being said, it still worked. It was still effective to a degree. It still pulled me in, and I was on this journey. I remained on this journey with these characters, even though I did have a couple of those minor gripes. And, you know, some of the other issues minor issues I had with the movie kind of plays, you know, it's one of those experiences where some of the issues that I had kind of plays into the positives as well. Like, it was maybe a little blunt at times, or slightly heavy-handed in moments with how it delivers the themes and the politics within its story. Sort of very to the point, you could say, and I did feel that at times. But it also sort of fitted in within the kind of the overall design and construction of its narrative that allowed the overall experience to still work for me. So even though I kind of had some of those minor issues where perhaps I felt it was a little bit too direct or heavy-handed, it also kind of worked for the way in which this experience, the way in which this story was constructed and how it played out. Like, a good example of this really is the character of the Major that's played by Mark Hamill. Now, Mark Hamill is great in this movie playing this character. He's clearly enjoying himself. And it does teeter quite close to hamminess. And I think it's his character and sort of Mark Hamill's portrayal of his character that kind of sort of highlights how kind of heavy-handed maybe at times, or how direct it can be with the way in which they are exploring sort of those themes when it comes to the politics and what it is that these characters are going through emotionally. You know, there are times like in the third act, for example, where Mark Hamill is sort of kind of really dialing it up with the performance, and you can just hear the Joker coming through. Now, if you're not aware of, you know, if you've never watched the animated Batman or anything with the Joker that's voiced by Mark Hamill, then you're not gonna get that. But I'm quite familiar with Mark Hamill voicing the Joker. I grew up with him playing that character or voicing that character, and I kind of really hear it come through, especially in the final act. And it, like I said, it never sort of falls into the trap of being too hammy, but it does teeter close. And I think his character in the movie is a good example maybe of how it can perhaps be a little bit clumsy or heavy-handed with how they approach those sort of deeper themes around its politics and sort of what it is that our characters are going through, or sort of their motivations, you could say. But I absolutely loved what Mark Hamill did with this character. I really enjoyed every moment he was on the screen, and I think what he does with the character was very effective, because when he's on the screen, there is a presence there. And even though at times I couldn't help but see the Joker or hear the Joker, I think he was incredibly effective at bringing this character to life. But there was a fine balance there. I mean, and I think he sort of pulled it in just at the right moment. Maybe not everyone's going to feel the same way, I don't know, but that's how it felt for me. So yeah, they are my thoughts on the latest adaptation of a Stephen King novel, and we seem to be getting a lot of them. I'm always surprised by how many novels Stephen King has written. I haven't read an awful lot by Stephen King. I recently started the Dark Tower story, the Dark Tower series, and I absolutely enjoyed book 1, but I'm not, when it comes to his books, his novels, I've got quite a few of them, I just haven't started them yet. He's definitely an author that I really want to sort of explore and dive into. But there's a lot of his material, a lot of his stories are being adapted, and this is definitely one of the stronger adaptations. Like, I can't compare it to that book, to the original source, but this was, in many ways, it was very Stephen King, and I think the approach to telling this story, they were very clever. I think they made the right decision in making sure that this was a very contained and tight and focused experience for it to be effective. Yes, I had minor niggles or issues when it came to certain characters and sort of, how certain characters were fleshed out. I kind of found myself wanting a little bit more and knowing a little bit more about certain characters, and maybe that kind of the dynamic sort of with this group of characters outside of the Musketeers, you could say. This is a movie that successfully, or this is an experience that successfully, well, it did for me anyway, put me or immerse me right into the heart and the core of these characters' journeys and stories. And no matter what minor issues that I had, I felt it was very effective. It put me on a ride, an emotional roller coaster, you could say, where it was incredibly intense at times, incredibly brutal. It's a very bleak story, but one that stays with you, and that is one of the reasons to why this was an incredibly effective experience for me. And I'm definitely going to check out the book, hopefully at some point. I'm so behind when it comes to novels, but yeah, anyway, enough rambling on from me. They are my thoughts on The Long Walk, and I will be giving The Long Walk on The Long Walk. But what do you guys think? Have you seen it yet? Have you read the novel? Did you love this adaptation? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then please let me know in the comments below and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. My next movie review will be for One Battle After Another, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm really looking forward to checking that out. You're hearing a lot of good things about it. So yeah, that'll be my next movie review. I've still got a retro review on the way. I haven't forgotten. There's just been so much going on at the moment with life and just things sort of getting in the way, but that is on the way. That series is still alive. You might not think it is, but it's still alive. This will be the next retro review. It's crack in the world. I've never seen it. I'm actually aiming for these older movies from like the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. I'm aiming for movies that I've never seen before, so they are these brand new experiences. And this is coming, this is on the way. And just another massive thank you to everyone that's supporting the channel. It will always overwhelm me that so many of you do want to follow just some random Welsh geek who pronounces things incorrectly and just rambles on. It will always overwhelm me that so many of you do want to follow just that. But I really, really appreciate it, and I really look forward to the future of this channel, because I absolutely love it. I love doing this. I enjoy it so much, and it does so much for me personally that one day I will sort of share with you all. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining me, and welcome to all the new subscribers, and thank you for joining me on this journey. So yeah, that's enough of rambling on from me for now. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll be catching you guys soon.